Hey guys and girls, although if my YouTube stats are anything to go by, you're all predominantly dudes around my age, so you know, sup. But yeah, so I have self-published my very own photo book, which is kind of what this video is about. It is called The Winter We Walked Alone. This is just the final proof that I had, which is a soft-pack version. The actual final version is a hardback, and it's filled with 128 pages of black and white images, all taken pretty much along a sort of 2.5-3 mile stretch of seafront that I walked up and down every other day during the winter lockdown here in the UK. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about how this project came about. It's kind of hard for me to talk about because we're coming up to a year from the time that I had like a little bit of a blip, shall we say. So obviously we've all had a tough time this past sort of 1.5 to 2 years due to the pandemic. You know, here in the UK we had like the first serious lockdown in the summer of 2019. At that time it was scary because it was new, no one really knew what was going on. They just knew that there was this like deadly virus that was killing people. It was summer in the UK, so although it was scary, it was still, we had sunshine, we had brightness, like we were still allowed to see people. The kids were off from school. We spent a lot of time together as a family. We went for like family walks. We played lots of board games and stuff together. And I actually became sort of like a functioning alcoholic, to be honest with you, around that time. Like my wife was drinking a lot, but I was drinking a lot, like every day. Sometimes I'd start, you know, from like midday. And just drink all day long. And I know a few people that went through the same thing just because of boredom. You know, my business, I was just not working at all. And yeah, I drank a lot. I drank a shit lot. So much so that I barely touch alcohol now, just because I don't know whether I did myself some damage to my liver, but anytime I drink alcohol now, I get a migraine. So I physically can't drink the stuff, which is annoying. But yeah, so we kind of got through that and things kind of opened up a bit more, restrictions were eased, but I still wasn't working. You know, weddings still weren't allowed to go ahead. Even though other things were being opened back up, weddings still weren't allowed to go ahead. We went through a phase where they were kind of allowed, but on restricted numbers of like 15 or 30 people, and I had a few go ahead, but it was like the vast majority of my weddings all got postponed or cancelled, and it was just a stressful time, you know, like we had kind of depleted all our savings, and I was on something called universal credit here in the UK, where the government kind of help you to pay your rent and bills when you can't, and it was just depressing, like really depressing. I felt like an utter failure that I couldn't provide for my family and that my business was in tatters. And then it kind of come up to my 34th birthday at the end of November, so we were kind of coming into the winter. Things were getting really bad again, and we were actually, it wasn't getting better, we were getting more restrictions. It was coming back in a big way, so much so that it actually got worse than when it did the first time. And then over the space of 2 weeks, we had 2 deaths in the family. Becky's nan passed away, and then like a couple of weeks later my granddad passed away. So that was just awful as well, kind of dealing with both of those deaths and the funerals and stuff. And I was just very depressed and living in denial, and I don't know, I had a bit of a breakdown on my birthday. I remember my wife had bought me like this like whiskey kit, like with different bottles of whiskey and stuff. The kids were in school luckily at the time, and she, yeah, it's difficult for me to talk about. She took them to school, and this was at like 9 o'clock in the morning, you know, I just sat there and I just downed the whiskey. I just drunk a lot of whiskey at like 9 o'clock in the morning, had a bath, and I contemplated suicide, to be honest with you. I'm insured for quite a hefty sum of money, so I just started thinking to myself, how could I end it so it looks like an accident, so my family get a lot of money and at least that they can live off of that, you know, like I started to think they'd be better off without me, you know. I just started to think all these things were going through my head, and I know that often depression and anxiety are to do with a chemical imbalance in your head. But yeah, I seriously thought of a few ways, you know, like drowning myself, having a car accident, you know. I started contemplating ways that I could actually end my life so my family would be better off without me. And looking back now, I realised that, you know, it's ridiculous. It was a ridiculous thing to do, but I had a tough time, and luckily my wife come home. She found me like drunk in the bath at like 9:30 in the morning, and she sorted me out, and you know, I told her what was going on in my head, and we spoke about it, and I got through it. And then I started working on this project. You know, I had a lot of spare time. I knew that I kind of needed something to do. I had already had an idea about working on a project about my hometown, and I just thought, fuck it, and I did it. And I started, like, just literally, we were allowed to go out for this sort of 1 hour a day allowance of daily exercise in the UK, because we were proper lockdown now. We weren't allowed to see family, we weren't allowed to see friends. Christmas was cancelled, we weren't allowed to see anyone over Christmas. It was just a horrible time, and I just got kind of over this sort of, you know, these suicidal tendencies and this sort of, I don't know what you call it, like manic episode, depression, I don't know. I just got kind of over that, and this project just helped get me through that time, you know. I was going out pretty much every day, sometimes every other day, and I was just walking up and down the same sort of stretch of seafront, just walking, taking pictures of things that caught my eye. I started then eventually asking people that I met along the way for portraits, and subconsciously, this was never planned, my images just started to give off kind of what I was feeling at the time, and maybe even what the nation was feeling at the time, you know. Like, my images started giving off these feelings of like loneliness, like we were all trapped in home, so like a lot of the images gave off this vibe of being trapped, like depressed, you know. Obviously we were all looking at our phones a lot because that's all we had, that was the only way we had to communicate. Once I realised what was happening, because initially I hadn't planned for it, and once I started reviewing the images and realising that this is what was happening, that's when it kind of evolved into what it is, and I started purposely then going out and trying to do more and more and more of the same, because I knew that was happening. I walked up and down for like pretty much 4 months, like 3.5 months I think it was to be precise, and I just shot for the project, and you know, I built up a body of work. And then initially what I did was I printed all the photos off. I just got some cheap sort of 6x4 prints, laid them all out on the table, and I started cherry picking kind of my favourite ones. And then I started sequencing them. So with the prints, I then kind of had them all laid out on the table, and I started like piecing them together, like, oh, that one kind of looks like it goes with that, that one kind of looks like it goes like that. Then what I did is I bought just like an empty book, and I started blue tacking or sticking them into the book together so I could get a feel for, you know, how it would look like in print if they were together, like in a book. And then I ordered an initial mock copy of the book, which was, I used a company called Southend Digital. I had like a 60% off voucher for them, so I got it for very cheap. And with that mock copy, I sent it to a few people to ask their opinion, like, what do you think of it? Could you offer any advice? So I sent it to a few friends of mine, and I even sent it to the one and only Mr. Kyle McDougall. If you don't know who Kyle is, he's got his own YouTube channel, podcast. He's a great photographer, shoots a lot of film, does a lot of videos to help other film photographers. If you follow my channel, you probably know who he is. And yeah, he offered some critique on it. You know, we had like an hour-long phone conversation, and he offered me some advice, and I took his advice. It was some good stuff. So initially, the first copy of the book, I'd laid it out in a certain way, which I don't know why I did that, but I felt like it felt right. And he said to me, why don't you lay it out in order of like timeline, like going from, you know, like the winter to slowly getting warmer, like you're coming out of it. So from the really, really bad time to slowly getting better and better. And I thought, of course, that makes like perfect sense. Like, why didn't I think of that myself? So that's what I did with the final book, is I laid it out kind of in almost like chronological order, of like really cold winter to slowly getting warmer to slowly restrictions being eased, and then it finishes up like with a photo of two people together. So every single photo in the book is just of like one person or one subject, and then the last photo is of two people sitting on the bench talking. Things have opened back up, we're allowed to see each other. It's kind of the end of that bad time. But yeah, a lot of the photos have this like subconscious meaning to them, you know, like even these like photos of trolleys that made it to the book. Like I remember walking up and down and I just saw these two trolleys there, and I thought, you know, the shops are closed, how have these trolleys got here? It's so funny, but it looked like they were kind of squaring off at each other, like about to have a fight. And then I come back like a couple of days later, and one of them was like knocked over, like upside down, like next to the sea, and it looked like they'd had a fight and this one had lost. And I just thought it was interesting. There was a lot of like domestic abuse going on at the time because people were like stuck at home when they usually weren't used to spending that time together, and I thought that was clever in how it kind of showed that domestic abuse almost, you know. And some of the people, like this girl that I met on the beach, you know, I saw her from the distance and I took a photo, and then I went and asked to take a photo, and I just thought, you know, why are you sitting on the beach by yourself? Now I'm not saying she was going through domestic abuse, she probably wasn't, but it just kind of fit that vibe as well. But yeah, so I'm not going to talk about too many of the photos. You know, when I've got the final copy, I'll do like a flick through and I'll give you my opinion on all the photos and stuff. But that's how the project came about. And because of, you know, what happened to me at the start of it, I then decided that I'm going to donate 50% of all profits from the book to the mental health charity Minds UK. And they do a lot in terms of like helping people who are struggling with the mental health. You know, you can call them, you can email them, you can chat to them online. Go on the website if you're struggling yourself, and they're there to help. So the pre-order is now available on my website. I'll put a link below. I've already sold, I think like 16 copies, so a few online and some people who want actual physical copies. So everyone who's bought one so far, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You guys are fucking awesome. Pre-order's still available. It's going to be available for a good few weeks yet. I'm kind of aiming to... I want to basically stop the pre-order maybe mid to end November, and then get all the orders in and try and have them out to everyone before Christmas. So it's kind of like a nice Christmas present from me to you. So please, if you're interested at all, buy a copy. 50% of all the profits are going to the mental health charity Minds. So, you know, you're kind of supporting a fellow artist and at the same time donating money to mental health charities. So it's kind of a win-win. I've just found out that my local newspaper has done a piece on it as well, so I haven't seen it yet. I think my wife's gone to buy a copy now, but I'll put that into this video as well. And yeah, that's it. I didn't want to ramble on too much in this video. I just kind of wanted to say the book is now released on pre-order, let you know kind of how it came about. I'm a strong believer for talking openly about mental health and depression and anxiety. You know, like as a society we're still not quite there yet, I don't think. Like, we would talk about physical illness very openly. You know, if your friend asks you, oh, do you want to come out, you know, for some drinks or something, and you're like, oh no, I've got like a really bad flu or I've got the cold or something, they're like totally fine. But you know, for most people, I think if you said to them, no, like I'm having a really bad mental health day, I'm kind of struggling, I'm feeling very anxious, they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Get out. So we're getting there, but there's still a way to go. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Hope you buy a copy, and yeah, let me know what you think. Bye.